It all begins in what appears to be a castle, bathed in the light of a beautiful blue moon. Descending a dark staircase, we arrive in a deeply gloomy and unsettling place. From within, sounds of a struggle echo from behind a massive iron gate. This is our hero, and he appears to be in a terrible predicament. The young man is in chains, covered in wounds, with strange-looking tools scattered nearby. Then a white-haired man grabs him, remarking that he's quite amusing. But the man brings a searing hot iron close to our hero's face with a look of pure contempt. He continues speaking, noting that only the protagonist failed to inherit his clan's talent. And without a shred of pity, he burns the chest of the utterly defenseless young man. Rian cries out in agony as he suffers at the hands of that maniac. The villain muses that even cursed and talentless, the boy's life is incredibly stubborn. Rian can barely speak, beginning to plead for something as he lies on the floor. With tears welling in his eyes, the young man begs the man to finally end his misery. The man scoffs, claiming he can't understand him and should have left his tongue unharmed. He had hoped to extract something from the sermon bloodline, but now he was just bored. Turning away, he tells the protagonist not to perish just yet, because the house still needs him. But in truth, he reveals he's been celebrating the fall of the sermon house for 3 years. Rian hangs there from the chains, completely broken and devoid of hope. The only illumination comes from the moonlight filtering through the cell's window. Alone and forsaken in that dungeon, our hero remains amidst the chaos. He then recalls that 3 years have now passed since his capture. He remembers his home, the great and highly respected Sermon family. His family stood as the primary line of defense against the monsters threatening the kingdom. These ghastly creatures would emerge from the Shadow Zone to invade the continent of Drea. And among the 5 great houses of the continent, his was the most significant of all. The Sermon House was known to everyone as the strongest and most celebrated in existence. But everything changed when his father and older brothers vanished without a trace. Seizing the moment, the Phaidon House saw a golden opportunity to attack and claim everything. They wasted no time in destroying our hero's family to steal their sacred blessing. What they coveted most was the legendary dragon's blood, a power only the Sermons possessed. Anyone born with this blood would become a 7th Circle Archmage by just 10 years of age, and upon reaching 15, they'd already be highly skilled master swordsmen. But our protagonist was not so fortunate, for he was born under a curse. Rian was the ill-fated heir born unable to wield magic or master the blade. For this, he laments, thinking that if he hadn't been cursed, everything would have turned out differently. Had he possessed strength, the Phaidon House never would have succeeded in destroying his family, and he wouldn't have had to endure all the experiments and torment from Sons Phaidon. But suddenly, the young man's thoughts shift, and he momentarily stops his lamenting. He is so utterly exhausted that he can no longer even muster regret for what transpired. In that moment, he feels something shift, and a colossal beast materializes in his mind. Rian senses his life is about to fade, and a strange energy emanates from him. Tears stream down his face, for he can finally rest in peace. Through his blurry vision, he spots small creatures watching him from the darkness. All at once, the image of that monstrous beast with a purple aura flashes back into his mind. He then has a vision of his past self, vanquishing a gigantic creature. In this memory, he appears much healthier, his eyes filled with fiery determination. The young man was an incredible warrior, fearlessly facing down hordes of monsters. His former self seemed confident, ready for any challenge that lay ahead. With his sword, he carved through every enemy that dared to cross his path. He even battled a giant wielding an axe who appeared to be immensely powerful. And after the battle, he was confronted by a brilliant, golden figure in the sky. That celestial being watched him with an odd smile and an air of superiority. Without hesitation, the Rian of the past charged forward with his swords to strike the being. But the golden creature simply clenched its fist, unleashing a massive amount of power. Immediately after, a blinding explosion of golden light obliterated everything in its vicinity. The entity then reveals its full form, clad in armor and wielding a sword of light. That being extends its hand, declaring it will grant our protagonist's wish. Back in the present, Rian hears someone call his name and his eyes fly open, startled. A blonde girl in glasses desperately cries out the young master's name. In that instant, the young man's eyes begin to radiate an intense blue light. He awakens, disoriented, and sees a maid named Colin looking down at him with great concern. Rian recognizes her as the Sermon House nanny but wonders why she looks so young. Glancing around, he realizes he's back in his old mansion and is completely stunned. Desperate, he asks the young woman for a mirror, leaving her utterly confused. When he looks into it, he sees his own childhood face and is left speechless. He then asks the girl for the current date, and she answers immediately. The young man is shocked to hear they are in the year 1892. It dawns on him that he has traveled back in time to when he was only 12 years old. His eyes begin to burn with intensity as he recalls a pivotal event. Looking through the window, the boy remembers what happened during this exact period. It was at this very moment that the Phaidon House began plotting his family's downfall. The image of the golden being promising to grant his wish floods his mind. He wonders, his hair glowing, if he truly has returned to the past. Just then, footsteps approach, and someone enters the room. An older man appears, saying he thought the young man was faking it again. Rian looks at the newcomer and recognizes him instantly, his expression surprised. It was Alejandro, captain of the Sermon family knights and his former master. The captain studies the boy and notes that he really doesn't look well. On that account, he decides the protagonist can skip training for the day. But Rian turns to the maid, declaring he won't miss practice, which confuses her. Alejandro observes the young man with a serious, suspicious gaze after that response. But our hero simply offers a confident smile and insists he's feeling fine. He then asks what today's training will be, leaving his master quite surprised. The captain replies that it's fencing practice and asks if he truly wishes to refuse rest. Seeing the boy's confident and unusual demeanor, Alejandro asks if he is truly the young master. With conviction, the young man clenches his fist and confirms that he is, without a doubt, refinement. His master wonders if this is a wish or a regression, but ultimately decides it doesn't matter. The young man, sword in hand, suggests they skip training and go hunt monsters instead. With a determined gaze, he thinks that this is his chance to set everything right. A while later, outside the mansion, they get ready for the training session. A status window materializes before Rian, displaying his exceptionally low attributes. He's relieved he can still access this window, even with his cursed body. Then Alejandro arrives to announce that the monster for the training is ready. They proceed to a large training arena in the mansion's courtyard. His opponent is a hideous goblin, chained up and seething with rage. But the creature shatters its restraints with ease and lunges toward the protagonist. The goblin charges ferociously at the young man, who braces for the fight. Alejandro and Colin watch from afar, deeply concerned for the young master's safety. The maid pleads for them to stop, as he always faints just from facing a goblin. But Rian states that Colin is correct. That was the old him up until yesterday. The protagonist closes his eyes, his expression calm yet fiercely determined. Then, with a confident smile, he opens his eyes and declares that now he understands everything. Just then, a system alert flashes. The curse is activating, heightening his fear of monsters. He now understands the terror he used to feel was a part of the Demon King's curse. Seeing the young man frozen once more, Alejandro sighs, clearly disappointed by the scene. The master decides that's enough for one day and attempts to end the boy's training. However, our hero refuses to back down, insisting he's not stopping yet. Taking a firm step forward, he shouts that this is still not enough for him. The goblin seizes the opportunity, lunging once again at the defenseless young man. Rian is paralyzed by fear, but he fights to break free from the curse's hold. He strains to move his feet, which feel as though they're rooted to the ground in terror. The young man tells himself he's not the same person anymore, and that he can defeat a mere goblin. He thinks that compared to the threat he faced in the future, a curse like this is nothing. The green creature continues its charge, its eyes blazing with fury. The image of the golden being that sent him back in time flashes through his mind. The fear he felt facing that entity was far greater than what he feels now. Fueled by this memory, Rian finally breaks free, raising his sword with all his might. And in a single, swift, precise motion, he strikes the green monster dead on. Alejandro and Colin stare jaws agape, unable to believe what they just witnessed. A notification then indicates he has overcome the curse, and its level has been reduced. The system informs him that after that fight, he no longer feels fear toward monsters. With a serious and confident expression, the young man's entire demeanor seems to have shifted. He turns to his master and requests a real sword so he can truly fight. His master, worried, asks if he'll truly be alright with an actual weapon. But the protagonist simply offers his master a smile brimming with confidence. Deeply moved, Alejandro thinks that the young master has finally become a true man. The goblin is still alive, but it looks gravely wounded from the initial blow. With the new sword in hand, Rian prepares to finish the creature for good. Without hesitation, he delivers a final, decisive strike, ending the green monster's life. The captain tells Colin to watch closely, for a new light is dawning on the Sermon family. He asserts that this figure is, without question, the next head of the Sermon house. Later, back in his room, our hero reflects on the day's events. The boy splashes water on his face, still processing his sudden return to the past. Catching his reflection in the window, he sees the face of his younger self. He muses that the status window and the system's aid were incredibly effective. With their help, he managed to overcome the curse, proving he can grow stronger. But he opens the status window again to verify something crucial. He sees he's earned experience points, but the amount is disappointingly small. Frustrated, he realizes he'll need to defeat thousands of goblins just to level up. He has to hurry as the day of his family's downfall draws ever closer. He looks at his reflection, seeing his future self, but now he knows the curse can be beaten. Still, he glances at the status screen, aware that he cannot waste this opportunity. The young man considers his family's predicament. It's been 2 years since his father and brothers vanished. They're clinging to their status as a great house by a thread, yet their enemies have not yet struck. With a clenched fist, he confirms to himself that he has a method to level up. With a smile and a blue aura glowing in his hand, he declares it's time to test the second method. Shortly after, a woman with vibrant red hair and a mask makes an imposing entrance. The scene shifts to another location within the same elegant mansion. They are seated in a room, and the woman remarks that she heard the tale of the goblin hunt. Nevertheless, she asks why he summoned her for magic training. This is Sina, captain of the Magic Corps and a powerful 7-circle archmage. She accuses him of arrogance over a single goblin, reminding him that magic is different. The woman asks if he has forgotten they halted his training due to his lack of talent. Rian acknowledges this but explains the curse had stolen his talents, preventing him from sensing mana. He asserts that was true only until yesterday, and asks what would happen if he could now sense mana. Sina is left utterly shocked and speechless by the boy's declaration. Suddenly, the teacup on the table begins to glow with an intense golden light. The woman then unleashes an immense, fairy aura, with a dragon taking shape behind her. She tells him he can open his eyes now, for she has drawn something only visible with mana. Saina challenges him to describe what she drew if his claim is true. Rian calmly replies that it is a beautiful red dragon, leaving Saina stunned. He then asks if he is mistaken, and the woman stammers that he is not. She wonders how he changed so dramatically and how he saw the dragon through her complex formula. Desperate for answers, she demands to know how he suddenly overcame the family curse. The protagonist then says Saina's name, preparing to explain the situation. He states he cannot use the family's method for refining mana, and that is why he needs her help. The captain of the Magic Corps studies him intently, trying to understand his request. She knows mana refinement is an indispensable method for gaining power. But this would mean placing the young master's life entirely in her hands during the process. The young man just offers a tranquil smile as if unconcerned by the risk. She asks if he intends to perish, and the boy replies that he couldn't resist her power anyway. With a serious gaze, he affirms that she is the only person he can ask this of. He then recalls a time in his past life when they were ambushed during a battle. In that memory, the woman was grievously wounded but continued to fight with immense bravery. Even with her body pushed to its limit, she shielded him until the very end without a moment's hesitation. Back in the present, our hero looks at his master with absolute confidence. Extending his hand, he says he trusts her more than anyone else, and she agrees to help. The young man then removes part of his clothing, preparing for the refinement ritual. As he kneels, a strange mark on his chest begins to glow, along with a blue aura enveloping his body. Saida announces she is beginning, and a pink mist starts to fill the room. Saida employs the blue earth refinement method, a technique known only to the direct hairs. The protagonist remembers training with this method in Adian to become stronger. The mage chides him, urging him to focus as the process is extremely dangerous. She warns him of the intense pain he will feel, and that he must not make a sound or move. With a stern look, she says that if it becomes unbearable, he must consider stopping the ritual. The young man contemplates the word pain, having endured so much of it in his past life. He recalls the torment he suffered at the hands of that white-haired man in the future. But he refuses to yield, enduring the agony with all of his willpower. The boy shouts that he trusts her, surprising the mage with his resolve. Understanding his message, Saina closes her eyes, focusing completely on the task. The woman unleashes her full mana, and the boy's body begins to shine with blinding intensity. Energy surges through the protagonist's body, his eyes glowing with immense power. But a system alert warns that the curse is activated, scattering all the incoming mana. Saida notes that the curse is just as described, but she was prepared for this. To counteract the effect, she decides to pour even more mana into the young master's body. The system continues to flash warnings that the curse is relentlessly activating. Rian realizes only he can see the alerts, and the curse is draining mana from both of them. The mage understands that even the mana of an archmage cannot overcome this powerful curse, but he plans to use the Adian method to confine the mana within his own body. By doing so, he will deceive the curse and retain all the mana for himself. Saina is astonished to see that the mana is no longer escaping the young master's body. The young man's hair glows as the system again warns that the curse is activating. But this time, the system shows that he is successfully resisting the curse's effects. The mana scorches his body like a lightning strike, but he continues to hold firm. With a determined gaze, he yells internally that he will not lose, no matter what. He remembers the battles of his past, and that he has endured pain far worse than this. After all, he was the Grandmaster player of Adian, he wouldn't yield so easily. In that life, he faced incredible challenges and bravely overcame every single one. His understanding of mana surpasses anyone's, and he will leverage that knowledge now. Because that knowledge isn't stored in the body, but is forever etched into his very soul. He then addresses Arkan, stating he doesn't know what kind of demon king he is. But not even the god known as Adian was a match for his immense power and skill. Suddenly, the strange mark on his chest begins to fracture, emitting a white light. The protagonist roars with all his might as a torrent of blue energy erupts from his body. The mage is thrown backward by the sheer force of the power exploding from the boy. The golden mana now flows smoothly throughout his body without any issue. But after the immense effort, the young man finally collapses, utterly exhausted. He feels his consciousness slipping away, but thinks it's alright because he succeeded. His mind drifts back to the memories of that blood-soaked prison window. Compared to the agony of the future, the pain he just felt was nothing at all. In his memory, the masked men spoke of disposing of him and returning to their base. But suddenly, a sharp blade slices through the air at incredible speed. A hooded man appears from nowhere, attacking the guards with his swift sword. The mysterious intruder is horrified by the scene and the young man's condition in the dungeon. Rian desperately shouts for someone to stop the intruder who has breached the area. But suddenly, he finds himself disoriented, staring up at a night sky with a full moon. He wonders how he ended up outside in a dark, frightening forest. Then, someone holds him and asks if he has finally awakened from his nightmare. It was Alejandro, his former master, covered in blood and gravely wounded. The captain apologizes to the young man for being too late to rescue him. Rian's face lights up with hope as he asks if he came to save him from that place. But his master simply looks down, his expression filled with immense sadness and guilt. With several arrows lodged in his back, he embraces the young master and apologizes once more. Watching his master perish in his arms, the protagonist screams and weeps in utter despair. With tears streaming down his face, the boy finally wakes up from the terrible dream. He was back in his own bed, safe, realizing it was all just a nightmare. The mana refinement was successful, but reliving that horrific memory soared his mood. He remembers his friends passing away, but now he has a way to prevent it all. With a ball of mana in his hand, he knows his newfound power must remain a secret, especially from the Fatten family, as he is not yet strong enough to stop them. With a determined gaze, he decides his next move is to hasten the family's downfall. The following day, he wakes in his bed with Sina and Alejandro at his side. The protagonist claims the mana refinement failed, leaving both of them utterly surprised. The mage and his master are baffled, not understanding what the boy means. The young man remains in bed as the two await a logical explanation. He thinks to himself that revealing the truth would be far too risky. He also wonders if they would even believe his story if he told them. So, he says that he tried his best but cannot feel any mana within his body. He holds out his hand, telling her she can check for herself if she has any doubts. Saida doesn't understand why he's denying his own success but agrees to verify. With a fiery aura in her hand, she uses her mana detection ability on the boy. The woman holds the protagonist's hand as a green and gold energy flows between them. Using her magic, she tries to sense any trace of mana in the young master's body. But to her astonishment, she detects absolutely nothing and is left in shock. The protagonist allows a subtle smile, his plan working perfectly. The mage, confused, says that the mana that was there before has simply vanished. She was certain he was filled with mana yesterday, but now she feels nothing. Embarrassed and at a loss for words, she gets up and hurries out of the room. Alejandro, concerned by her reaction, tries to make sense of what happened. He then tells the boy not to be discouraged and to focus on his sword training. But the protagonist replies that he can't do that again, as it was too difficult. Alejandro is left shocked and speechless by the boy's unexpected response. He is so stunned he looks as though his soul has left his body. Time passes and autumn leaves drift down upon the grand family mansion. 2 months go by, and the winter snow begins to blanket the entire estate. The maid Colin waits anxiously outside the master's room. She is saddened that the young master has once again not left his room. With the head of the house away, the lady is the only one struggling to hold everything together. A butler then asks if the boy will be staying in his room again today. He remarks that it's been 3 months since the young man last listened to the captain. Another maid comments that in the end it was all just a passing dream. But Colin defends the young master, insisting he was only trying to live up to expectations. She shouts that their gossip is only hastening the ruin of the sermon house. For it's not just within the house he's called useless, but throughout the entire kingdom. The young woman is incensed that they would call a 12-year-old boy such cruel names. But the other staff members retort that the servants are resigning one by one. They then turn to Colin, asking what she plans to do about the situation. Elsewhere, the protagonist is dining and notices something off about the meal. He notes the declining quality of the food, a clear sign of financial trouble. With a wicked grin, he thinks that everything is proceeding exactly as he planned. He reflects that his past self would have squandered the family's fortune trying to save it. But now, with his experience from Adian, the protagonist has a much better strategy. He will wait for the perfect moment when his enemies lower their guard, and then he will strike. The family's downfall began with the disappearance of his father and older brothers. The once bustling training grounds are now nearly deserted. All that remains are a few untalented knights and servants unwilling to work. Even the nobles who once sought to befriend the next leader have ceased their visits. Witnessing the family's chaos, they simply turned their backs and walked away. This allows the boy to freely act as a recluse without anyone suspecting a thing. But the ruin is progressing more slowly than he anticipated, so he must be more meticulous. Suddenly, Colin bursts into his room, desperately shouting his name. She tells him it's time for training and that the captain of the knights is waiting. The young master wears a bored expression, clearly not wanting to leave his bed to train. He pulls the covers over his head and asks to be excused, but the maid is not having it. With a dark expression, the young woman yanks the blanket off him with all her might. The protagonist is startled by the maid's action as she grabs him without mercy. And without any ceremony, she scoops him up to carry him forcibly to his training. With clenched teeth and a determined gaze, the girl shows she is not messing around. She shouts that she will never abandon the sermon house, recalling when he was just a baby. The young man chuckles at the situation as she carries him from the room like a sack of potatoes. On the training field, the young man is brought for yet another session with his master. Alejandro yells at him, asking how many times he must be taught how to hold a sword. The master explains that the swordsmanship he's learning infuses mana into the blade with each swing. With a bored look, the protagonist thinks that his master hasn't given up on him either. He wants to repay their loyalty, but he cannot be caught secretly training at night. Body domination is an Adian skill used to mask the true state of one's body. Suddenly, the system notifies him that his experience has increased, granting him new points. His stamina and strength stats rise and he feels a strange, sharp pain. Panicked, the young man claims he needs the restroom and bolts from the training session. In the bathroom, he realizes the skill is still unstable and can break with sudden movements. He opens his status window to check his progress after so much training. The boy is now level 3, and his attributes have risen significantly from the start. With a smile, he sees that 3 months of secret training are yielding results. He plans to level up once his attributes hit 20, allowing him obtain the Ghost class. Outside, he spots his master with a guest and becomes curious about their identity. The man introduces himself as Truno Hill, the general manager of the sermon house, and apologizes. He hands a letter to the young man, who senses this situation is different from his past life. Rian takes the scroll, already knowing its contents from his past experience. The letter contains an invitation to a party hosted by the second prince, Kyle Darren. On that very day, the final piece of the plan for the sermon house's downfall was set in motion. On the way to the party, the protagonist yawns sleepily inside the carriage. Truno remarks that he's been sleeping since they departed, and the young man complains about Colin. He recalls the maid excitedly picking out his clothes late into the night. The manager says he understands, since neither Alejandro nor Sina is with them. And just recently, a large horde of monsters suddenly appeared at the border. The Sermon family's duty is to prevent these monsters from entering the continent. And with Sina as the acting head, she could not refuse the madam's summons. As a result, a 12-year-old brat is heading to the capital as the family's representative. But Truno insists that no one in the kingdom would dare harm a direct member of the Sermons. Rian thinks that might be true if the family were still as powerful as it once was. Now that the family has weakened, its head must personally attend the birthday celebration. The boy smirks, thinking about how he himself engineered this very situation. They finally arrive in Darbon, the royal capital of the Darren Kingdom. The city is grand and beautiful, filled with imposing, well-crafted architecture. A crowd of servants and maids awaits them at the entrance of the grand palace. As he steps from the carriage, he's greeted by a blonde woman and a guard. A blonde-haired man with a suspicious smile welcomes him as the Dragon of Drea. This is Kyle Darren, the second prince of the Darren Kingdom and the party's host. Truno expresses gratitude for the invitation and the kingdom's hospitality on the young master's behalf. But Rian scoffs internally at the word hospitality as he stares at the prince. On the way, he felt the gazes of every citizen fixated on their carriage. The family was once so respected that everyone was concerned about its decline. Looks of pity and concern for the future came from every direction. Rumors about the boy had spread, painting him as a delinquent. He noticed the contemptuous expressions from the nobles, but this was all part of his plan. With a confident smile, he thinks that everything is unfolding exactly as he intended. The young man then plays the part of a fool, greeting everyone with a forced, cheerful grin. Truno is mortified by the young master's behavior and doesn't know where to look. The other party guests laugh and mercilessly mock the boy's predicament. A malicious glint in his eye, he wonders how much longer he should keep up this charade. Elsewhere, a few guards discuss the young master's arrival at the castle. They had arrived a week in advance to protect the boy during the festivities. They came early so he could interact with other nobles, but that never happened. One of them recalls how the young man couldn't even manage a proper greeting. And since his arrival, he hasn't left his room once, frustrating everyone. A guard complains that the party is filled with fine food, drink, and beautiful women. Frustrated, the captain sent the newest recruit to try and persuade the young master. But the recruit returns to report that the boy will attend tonight's banquet and requests his escort. Rian reflects that these past few days allowed him to train without any distractions. He gazes out the window, thinking that attending the banquet isn't merely out of consideration for the guards. He has a greater objective in mind and will not let this opportunity slip away. He knows that today that man will arrive, and he must be ready for their encounter. The man who tormented him in the future son's Fatten, his family's sworn enemy. Later at the royal banquet, the atmosphere is vibrant as everyone enjoys the celebration. Suddenly, an announcer declares the arrival of young Master Sun's Fatten. The doors swing open, and a brilliant light floods the entrance of the grand ballroom. Sun's Fatten enters with an imposing posture and an expression of pure arrogance. He strides through the hall with his guards as all eyes turn to him in admiration. Truno glares at him with disdain as the young man approaches to greet him. Suns recognizes the butler and greets him with a disingenuous smile. He mentions hearing the sermon house arrived first and asks after the young master. With a provocative tone, he asks for the whereabouts of the renowned Rian sermon. Truno grows nervous at the question, unsure how to respond to the young man. Suns then brings up the rumors about the sermon house's decline to taunt the butler. He boasts of having reached the fifth circle of magic at only 15 years old. But insulting the sermon house on its own turf was more than Truno could tolerate. Suns claims he doesn't believe the rumors and insists they should punish whoever shamed the house. Truno is enraged by the young man's audacity, calling him a delinquent to his face. At that moment, a voice announces the entrance of the Dragon of Drea, young Master Rian. Suns turns toward the door to see the protagonist entering with a confident air. Truno is dumbfounded, wondering why the boy suddenly decided to leave his room. A radiant aura envelopes the protagonist, who now carries himself like a true noble. Dressed in an elegant suit, he exudes a confidence that leaves everyone in the hall impressed. The guests murmur that he seems very different from the rumors they'd heard. They comment that his dignified presence doesn't seem to signal a family in decline. Suns grows irritated as he sees the sermon name once again capturing everyone's attention. Seething with jealousy, he clenches his fist tightly while watching the young master. Rian approaches his rival with a challenging gaze and a self-assured posture. He asks if he is Sun's Fatten, saying his brother has told him a great deal about him. Truno is taken aback to hear the name Lat's the family's fourth and missing son. Other guests also begin to whisper about the boy's vanished relative. Sun's flustered, replies that he also knows a few things about the young master. But Rian cuts him off, saying his brother described him as an exceptionally kind person. He praises him, noting that even after leaving the academy within months, his reputation was stellar. A provocative smile plays on his lips as he turns to his rival, who is simmering with rage. The protagonist recalls how he supposedly protected a bullied classmate at the academy, and how he also helped a female student who was being harassed by others. Sun grows increasingly furious with each mention of his fabricated good deeds. The young man continues his taunts, mentioning something about his brother's knees. Truno then interjects, saying he heard Sun's brought excellent medicine for laths. The butler says the captain had a message, but he seems to have forgotten it. Rian leans in close to his rival and whispers something in his ear with a smirk. Angrily, Truno pulls the boy away, telling him to stop staring at his rival. With a blue aura flickering in his eyes, the protagonist is relishing Sun's reaction. Sun is infuriated by the insult, unable to believe the young master's nerve. His eyes filled with hatred, he wonders how Rian dares to threaten him like this. But our hero ignores him, thinking that Sun needs to become even more enraged. For his enemy's anger is a crucial seed for his grand plan. Later, in his quarters, Sun is completely consumed by a fit of rage. He smashes a vase on the floor, screaming that the banquet hall is not a battlefield. With hate-filled eyes, he curses Rian, recalling what the boy said about Raz. At the academy, everyone knew of Sun's reputation and feared him for his power. But in reality, he was expelled, and his family hushed up the incident to prevent a scandal. The humiliation from that time was never meant to be revealed to any outsider. Sun trembles with fury, remembering the day he was confronted by Raz. Raz accuses him of crossing a line, facing him with an arrow of crackling thunder. Desperate, Sun tries to explain, claiming he didn't know the girl was his girlfriend. But Raz admonishes him for using magic to harm a fellow student. With a cold glare, Raz threatens his life if he doesn't offer a sincere apology. Humiliated with tears in his eyes, Sun is forced to kneel and beg for forgiveness. That day, Raz uses thunder magic and shamed him in front of everyone. Back in the present, Sun screams with rage and frustration at the memory. He declares the plan must proceed and that he needs to silence Raz's younger brother. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he imagines the terrible fate awaiting Rian. Sun proceeds to a dark room and summons someone for a secret meeting. The doors open and a mysterious shadow enters the room to meet with the young man. Sun is surprised by who is there, commenting on the unexpected encounter. With a serious expression, he realizes this midnight meeting is of the highest level. The figure in the shadows is Truno Hild, the head butler of the sermon house, and its betrayer. Meanwhile, the protagonist's carriage glides through the dark city streets. Rian muses that he's accomplished everything he wanted at the party and shed his troublemaker image. Most importantly, he made Sun's fat and take the bait perfectly, just as he'd planned. Truno praises the boy, saying his appearance at the party was remarkable and restored hope. But Rian counters that he started a fight instead of forging alliances with other nobles. The butler concedes that the young master's actions were indeed very satisfying to watch. With a confident smirk, the protagonist knows his plan is progressing perfectly. He then raps on the carriage wall, activating a secret sound dampening mechanism. Truno is startled by the sudden action, not understanding what is happening. Rian looks at him with a serious expression and asks about that spark of hope. The butler is alarmed, realizing the boy has engaged the carriage's soundproofing. With a cold gaze, Rian says that if he truly believed that, he shouldn't have betrayed the house. The butler is terrified, breaking into a cold sweat at the young master's accusation. Desperately, he asks what the boy means, only to be told his crimes are grave. The carriage continues its journey under the moonlight as the tension thickens. But the protagonist adds that the crimes were committed for the sermon house, and thus can be forgiven. Truno's jaw drops, unable to comprehend how the young master knows his secret. Trembling with fear, he bows and asks just how much the boy knows about his plans. Rian says he knows he had no other choice, and for that reason, he will give him a chance. With a menacing look, he instructs the butler to listen carefully and then decide for himself. Truno stares back in silence, sweating profusely as he awaits the boy's proposal. The carriage proceeds on its path as the two discuss the future of the family. The protagonist calmly lays out his plan, and the butler listens with rapt attention. Truno is stunned by the sheer intelligence and audacity of the young master's scheme. He cannot believe a 12-year-old boy could conceive of such a thing. With clenched teeth, he wonders how Rian could have orchestrated all of this alone. The young man meets his gaze, his eyes glowing with a serious blue aura. The butler is overwhelmed, covering his face with his hands, unsure of what to do. After long consideration, he finally makes a decision and lets out a sigh of relief. With tears in his eyes, he says he wants to shout with sheer happiness and emotion. A satisfied smile appears on the protagonist's face as he acknowledges the butler's choice. The protagonist warns Truno that they've already passed the main road and something is about to happen. The butler wonders how the boy can smile, knowing the imminent danger. He realizes it isn't a simple smile, but something far more chilling and cold. The young master's gaze holds a cruel, bone-chilling intent for revenge. Suddenly, the carriage grinds to a halt, black smoke billowing from a broken wheel. A guard asks why they've stopped, but the coachman remains silent, unresponsive. The knight approaches and sees the man slumped over, showing clear signs of poison. Moments later, a purple dart strikes the guard's horse, causing it to collapse. Panicked, the knight yells that it's an ambush and orders everyone to protect the carriage. A volley of mana-infused arrows rains down from the sky upon the guards. The escort mages erect barriers to shield themselves from the surprise assault. The captain of the guard bellows in fury at such a cowardly attack on the sermon house. The arrows bombard the magical barrier, causing it to crack under the relentless force. The captain commands that no one approach the carriage, warning that even allies will be struck down. But a guard peers inside and sees that the young master has vanished. He screams in desperation that Rian is gone, sending the other knights into a panic. From a distance, the knights are frozen, unsure how to react to the boy's disappearance. Elsewhere, a hooded figure on horseback gallops at high speed under the full moon. With a look of determination, the mysterious man takes a deep breath and presses onward. The butler wonders how the boy can smile, knowing the danger that is coming. The kidnapper carries him on his back, fleeing the scene at incredible speed. The system alerts him that multiple status abnormalities are being activated in his body. He wonders how much time has passed, noting the numerous spells cast upon him. He knows that by now, the family guards must be in absolute chaos. In his past life, his kidnapping led to the family's ruin as everyone abandoned their post to search for him. But now, he can turn this incident to his advantage and manipulate the events to come. Truno is shocked by the notion of a false fall and fails to grasp the plan. Ryun explains that trying to rebuild the family now would be a grave mistake. Other families would feel threatened and unite to attack the sermon house. That is why he cultivated the rumor of being useless, to make them lower their guard. But he knows the Fatten family will try to eliminate him regardless. With a malicious smile, he says he can use their greed to his own benefit. Since Sons fell for his taunt, he will surely make a move after returning from the capital. And with an inside alley like Truno, the plan becomes even more flawless. The butler looks at him with a confident smile, having apparently made his choice. Rian presses him to decide will this incident mark their end, or the beginning of their rebirth. A system notification confirms that his magic and the Blue Earth formula are resisting the effects. The protagonist thinks that everything is proceeding according to plan but offers an apology. He looks at his kidnapper with a green glint in his eyes and braces himself. With a muttered apology, the mysterious man carries him away in his arms. The protagonist tells Truno to stick to the plan as it is his only path to redemption. The butler weeps with regret and guilt for betraying his master's trust. The system announces that all of his attributes have reached 20, unlocking a new one. With his eyes glowing, he thinks that the first condition for growth has been fulfilled. In a dark forest, a group of cloaked figures waits for someone. The kidnapper arrives with Rian in his arms, reporting a successful mission. Sons Fatten emerges, revealing himself as the mastermind behind the young master's abduction. He expresses surprise at seeing Truno himself selling out his young lord. Truno insists Sons' words are unfair, he simply did what was necessary. But the young man scoffs, telling him he must accept the consequences of betraying his master. With a smirk, he hands over a scroll containing the information he promised Truno. Truno asks if the information is reliable and Sons confirms its authenticity. The Asen family is known for contract hits, but they also deal in valuable intelligence. The scroll contains details on the whereabouts of the missing heirs. Rian now understands why Truno betrayed the Sermon family. The butler did all of this in an effort to find the protagonist's older brothers. With its vast financial resources, the Fatten family outbid everyone for the information. Sons dismisses Truno, calling him a traitor and declaring his part as done. The butler pleads with him to keep his promise and not to harm the boy. With a wicked grin, Sons vows the young lord will return home without a single scratch. As Truno departs, a guard asks if they should take care of him, but Sons refuses. He explains the butler is already a condemned man, the Sermon family knows of his betrayal. For his grand plan to succeed, Truno must return, and everything has been set up for that. A guard asks if he will handle the service, and Sons confirms he's been waiting for this moment. In a dark dungeon illuminated by moonlight, the protagonist finds himself once again. Sons grabs him by the hair, asking if he finally grasps the situation. Our hero meets his gaze with a calm, defiant look, showing no sign of fear. Sons laughs at the scene, finding it hilarious to see his sermon hair in such a state. Rian asks what he's doing, and Sons reveals he has captured the last of the sermon bloodline. The boy threatens him, but Sons just scoffs, recalling the taunt in the banquet hall. He asks if Rian is threatening him again, staring down him with contempt. A confident smile remains on the protagonist's face as he continues to stare back in silence. Sons says that while he may have heard many things from his brother, he doesn't know the full story. He asks if Rian knew that he was the one who wanted his father and brothers to vanish. Enraged, he kicks the boy, demanding to know how he dares to mess with the Fatten family. Sons strikes the protagonist, reprimanding him for his audacity and attitude. The young man endures the blows, a green glint shining in his eyes. With a malicious grin, Sons reveals that Truno sold him out for information on his brothers. He shouts that no one is coming to save him and that this is all part of his master plan. This kidnapping is the cornerstone of the impending war between the Fatten and Sermon families. With disdain, Rian thinks that Sons talks far too much for someone in his position. A confident smile on his face, the protagonist unleashes a green aura and prepares to act. Sons is stunned to see energy radiating from the young master's body. The boy activates a magic circle, and a brilliant green light floods the dungeon. The magic circle expands, creating a powerful seal around the entire area. Sons shields his face, terrified by the unexpected magic from the boy he'd underestimated. The green energy envelopes Sun's entire body as he struggles to comprehend the situation. Rian declares he has awaited this day since his return to Drea, and now he will have his revenge. Terrified, Sun demands to know what's happening, but the boy remains silent. He simply watches as his enemy is mercilessly caught in his magical trap. A green light flashes from the top of a tower against the night sky and full moon. Rian's magic ensnares Sun, lifting him into the air and rendering him completely helpless. Sun screams in desperation, asking why nothing is happening to him. He assumes the boy did all this just to buy himself a few extra seconds. Rian approaches, calls him an idiot, and reminds him of something important. He looks down on him with a serious expression and a contemptuous smile. The protagonist says he talks too much, and now it's time to pay for his crimes. Green energy tightens around Sun's neck, and he begins to suffocate from the magic. He coughs, feeling a terrible pain in his throat, unable to draw a breath. In a panic, Sun realizes he can no longer speak and begins to freak out. Rian reveals he used a magic circle of silence to seal Sun's ability to cast spells. He asks how it feels to be a mage who cannot conjure a single spell. Sun tries to use a purple magic to break free but is unable to cast anything. He despairs for a moment but then remembers he can still cast Fireball without an incantation. Rian explains that only spells up to the third circle can be cast without incantations. Sun conjures a purple Fireball, preparing to attack the protagonist with all his might. But Rian states his fatal error is relying on a mere second circle spell. The Fireball engulfs the boy completely, but it fails to cause any damage. With a wicked smile, Sun thinks his father would forgive him for breaking one of the boy's legs, but he is astonished to see that his attack had absolutely no effect. The protagonist's leg glows with a green and purple magic, and he stands there completely unharmed. A system notification confirms he has successfully resisted the Fireball spell. Sun launches another more powerful Fireball, but Rian remains unscathed and mocks him. He asks if Sun genuinely believed he would just stand there and take the hits. The protagonist creates a blue magic circle, preparing to counterattack. And with a single beam of blue light, he effortlessly negates his enemy's Fireball. Sun is shocked to see his magic dispelled with such ease. Rian reveals his mana disruption ability, which can nullify spells instantly. He explains that he can cancel any magic of a preset level, rendering Sun's attacks useless. With his teeth clenched in rage, Sun cannot believe he has been so thoroughly defeated. Sun draws a dagger and lunges forward, but the protagonist is ready for him. He is surprised to see that Rian has easily broken free from his chains. The boy shatters the remaining chains, remarking that they are nothing to him now. He reveals that his magic circles don't stop at just 2, and he has more surprises in store. A third magic circle appears, and Sun is terrified by the young man's power. The paralysis spell strikes Sun, slamming him forcefully to the ground. With a satisfied smile, Rian watches his enemy suffer under the spell's effect. Sun screams in agony as he is electrocuted by the protagonist's magic. The boy approaches, stating that the roles have now been reversed, and he is in control. He looks down at his fallen rival, savoring this moment of sweet revenge. Sometime later, Sun awakens, disoriented to see Rian sitting before him. He groans in pain, unable to move due to the paralysis spell. The protagonist asks if he's awake, then casually comments on the dagger he carries. Sun struggles against the chains but finds himself completely immobilized. He is shocked to realize he cannot break free from the restraints at all. Enraged, he yells at the boy, only to realize his voice has returned to normal. He notices the chains are made of simple iron, not mana-suppressing metal, which irritates him further. Sun attempts to use his wind/magic to sever the chains, but Rian attacks him, asking if he really took him for a fool to try something so obvious. Sun groans in pain, wondering how the boy attacked him without a magic circle. Rian asks if Sun truly thought he would imprison a mage without any countermeasures. With a smirk, holding a dagger, he reveals he has drawn a magic circle directly on Sun. He then slashes Sun with the dagger, activating the blood magic circle. Sun is horrified and terrified by what the protagonist has done to him. A blood magic circle materializes on his chest, a forbidden and excruciatingly painful art. Rian explains this magic is cast while the victim is kept fully conscious. He recalls that Sun did the very same thing to him when he was only 12. Desperate, Sun demands to know how he knows the spell and why he can wield mana. The young man replies that it is all thanks to the memories and experiences from his life in Adean. 3 months ago, he focused on leveling up his concealment skill to train in secret. Acquiring other skills was simple, thanks to the secretive circuits he had learned. Every skill has a unique circuit, and mana is injected into it for activation. As a master player, he can perceive these circuits and remembers every skill. Therefore, he doesn't need to study or practice repetitively to acquire a new skill. For him, training is merely a shortcut to rapidly increase his strength. Using his concealment skill, he left the mansion and set up traps to catch Sun. Rian states the magic circle was meant to amplify the pain Sun had planned to inflict. With the blood-stained dagger in hand, he declares that now Sun will feel that very same pain. An explosion of red light illuminates the tower as the protagonist's vengeance begins. Sun screams, pleading for it to stop as the pain from the magic circle is unbearable. Dagger in hand, Rian asks with a smile if they should call it a day. Sun weeps in agony, trying to speak but barely able to form words through the suffering. The protagonist turns his back, and Sun attempts to warn him of an approaching danger. He yells that Patton's men will arrive soon and that Rian must escape. The boy asks how he knows reinforcements are a week away, startling Sun. Rian reveals that he knows Suns ordered his men to return in a week to torment him. Suns is shocked, realizing the protagonist was not unconscious the entire time. But Rian adds that, knowing his personality, he wouldn't have genuinely warned him of danger. With clenched teeth, Suns realizes he has been deceived and has fallen right into the boy's trap. The protagonist mentions the Fatten family's direct unit, the Fingers of the House. Desperate, Suns shouts that he is telling the truth and that reinforcements are on their way. But Rian ignores him and delivers a punch to his face, silencing him for good. The blood magic circle on his chest glows intensely as the torment resumes. The boy tells him to continue screaming, promising not to touch him again for the rest of the day. Sun screams Rian's name, his voice filled with all the hatred and pain he feels. The protagonist prepares to welcome the guests who will be arriving shortly. He must get ready to face the elite of the Fatten house, and there is no room for error. A week later, under an orange sky, the reinforcements finally reach the location. The hooded men ask if this is the place, and one of them confirms it with certainty. A week has passed since Suns abducted the boy with no contact since. The team leader asks if anyone else has approached in the last week. The guards report that no one has, and they have been monitoring all passages. With a purple aura, the leader worries that Suns may have gotten carried away with the torment. He grabs his staff, recalling that the order was to bring the sermon brat back alive. He announces he is going in, but a guard tries to stop him to no avail. The leader asserts that the family head's orders are absolute for the Fingers, and with his purple magic, he obliterates the dungeon door in an explosion. He decides to enter alone, ordering his men to wait outside. With a stern look, he tells them they would only get in the way and must obey. The leader ventures into the dungeon alone, moving cautiously through the darkness. He descends the stairs with care, sensing that something is amiss. With a strange feeling, he perceives a sinister presence but detects no mana. Suddenly, multiple magic circles flare to life on the walls, catching him by surprise. He dashes to escape the traps that have been activated all along the staircase. Desperate, he erects a barrier to shield himself from the trap's magical assaults. He realizes something must have happened to Suns and casts a detection spell. He wonders if the traps are activated through a network of connected magic circles. Whoever did this knows the layout well and is exceptionally skilled in magic. He questions who could have set this all up. Was it the sermon house or a third party? With no time to waste, he creates a double-layered barrier to protect himself from all the traps. The leader vows that he doesn't know who set this trap, but he will make them regret it. He swears he will have vengeance on whoever dared to mess with a finger of the Fatten house. He finally reaches the bottom of the dungeon and discovers a horrifying scene. The floor is slick with blood, and the air is heavy with tension. He finds Sun suspended by chains, his body covered in numerous injuries. The leader prepares to strike, but then realizes his young master is in grave danger. With his magic, he attempts to free Suns from the chains holding him aloft. The purple energy shatters the restraints, and Suns collapses to the floor, completely broken. The leader rushes to his side, asking what transpired in this dark place. Suns weeps with pain and humiliation for being defeated so shamefully. The leader examines the injuries and recognizes the magical signature of Suns Fatten. He wonders what happened here, then spots the protagonist tied up in a corner. Desperate, he pulls out a recovery potion to save his young master. He knows this is risky, as the enemy has not yet been revealed and could strike at any moment. The leader realizes that rescue is not the enemy's sole objective. There is something more. He understands the boy is bait, but he cannot abandon his mission to save Suns. Suns points toward Rian, stating that he was the one who left him in this deplorable state. With hatred in his eyes, he confirms that the one responsible for all this is Rian's sermon. The leader turns to the protagonist with a serious and deeply suspicious look. He decides to use a 7th circle spell to ensure the boy remains immobilized. But Rian says he is being overly cautious and surprises him with an attack. The leader launches a fireball but then notices the boy is no longer bound. He wonders if it was an illusion spell and prepares himself for combat. The leader's incantation is abruptly cancelled, causing him to suffer a painful backlash. Rian taunts him, saying a great mage like him should recover quickly. The boy reveals he used clones to distract him, and that he should have dealt with him first. Furious, the leader uses his staff to create a powerful purple magic circle. He is incensed that Rian would dare use illusions against a master of illusion magic. With his illusion dispelling magic, he attempts to unravel the protagonist's spell. The purple energy spreads out, dissolving the clones and revealing the real Rian. The protagonist charges forward with his dagger, preparing for a close-quarters attack. With a swift movement, he dodges the attack and positions himself for a counter. The two face each other with determined glares, ready for the ensuing battle. Rian kicks the leader with immense force, sending him crashing to the ground. The leader is shocked by the boy's audacity, calling him impudent. He gets back up and lands a heavy blow on Rian, sending him flying backward. With a smirk, he asks if the boy really thinks he can get the jump on him. The leader conjures a fireball, threatening to melt off half of the protagonist's face. He claims the illusion was the boy's last resort and that he's now out of tricks. With a contemptuous sneer, he asks how badly Rian underestimates the Fingers of Fatten. Suddenly, he spots the dagger lying on the floor and feels a sense of foreboding. He glances to the side and sees Suns attacking him from behind with an expression of pure hatred. The dagger plunges into the leader's neck, who never expected such a surprise attack. Suns holds him, stating that his arrogance is unbearable and that he will pay the price. He asks if the leader is familiar with soul transference and reveals his plan. Riot explains that Sun's soul is currently trapped within his own unconscious body. The blood magic circle contained other spells besides simple pain amplification. His true ace in the hole is a magic that transfers the soul and controls the body. The leader tries to use his magic to escape, but is hampered by the pain from the attack. An explosion of fire destroys a section of the wall, and the leader collapses wounded. The leader's mask shatters, revealing his face and his identity. Ryun, now in Sun's body, approaches him and looks down with contempt. A green and yellow aura surrounds his body as he prepares for the final act. With a satisfied smile, he declares that he has finally captured his target. Ak lies on the ground, wounded and powerless to react to the protagonist's surprise attack. Ryun takes out a blue potion, preparing to use it on his new body. He pours the liquid over his head to heal his wounds and strengthen himself. The system announces the creation and enhancement of the pain-resistant skill. He remarks that it hurts but can't be helped, as he needed a wound inflicted by Ak. With tears in his eyes, he steels himself for the next step in his plan for revenge. Celebrating, he shouts that he succeeded and has hunted one of the fingers of Fatin. He opens the status window to view his progress and the rewards from the battle. The system informs him that the mission is complete and his level has increased significantly. He wonders about the mission itself, but is thrilled to have leveled up so quickly. A window displays that Ryun's sermon is now at power level 15. He leaped from level 2 to 15, knowing it's a natural result of his victory. He realizes there are a few things he must do urgently and prepares for the next step. A red magic circle appears on the floor as he readies himself for a new ritual. He drags Ag's body into the center of the circle and begins the spell. The success of this ritual will determine how much he can accelerate his plans. Circuits are etched into the soul, not the body, and this is the key to his power. That's why even in Sun's body, he can wield his own magical abilities without issue. He pours his magical power into the prepared circuits, and a golden energy begins to flow. As his level drops due to the amount of magic expended, he remains focused. The system announces a level decrease of 5 and that an additional condition has been met. He has fulfilled the requirements for a hidden class and unlocked the shadow class. The shadow class is a hidden assassin class, available only to those with the right attributes. He succeeded, but with his remaining levels, he needs to perform the ritual 2 more times. Blue lightning strikes the tower as he continues with his ambitious plan. The energy from the lightning arcs through the dungeon, illuminating the dark space. With a blue aura, he continues the ritual to obtain the advanced classes. The system announces that the class change was successful. He has done it. He looks at the class cards before him, seeing the fruit of his labor. One of the 2 attempts succeeded, and he has obtained the advanced necromancer class. His level has risen dramatically, and he can attempt a 3rd class change with his remaining levels. This would allow him to acquire the hidden phantom class and become even more powerful. The phantom class is ideal for him as it synergizes perfectly with his other classes. The problem, however, is that obtaining this class requires a certain soul size. If he fails at his current level, he is unsure of the potential side effects. But he has no time for hesitation and decides to risk it all to advance his plan. He continues the ritual, and the system once again announces a level decrease of 5. Suddenly, he is struck by excruciating pain as a purple energy violently envelopes him. The system warns that his soul has been damaged and requires urgent recovery. He screams in agony, feeling his body being torn apart by the out-of-control magic. His body trembling, he wonders if obtaining a 3rd advanced class is truly impossible. He glances to the side and sees his former body being tormented by Sun's Fatin. The memories of pain and suffering rush back, forcing him to relive that nightmare. The image of his friends passing away and his family being destroyed haunts him. He remembers Alejandro and Sina, who perished while protecting him from the enemy. But he refuses to give up, using all of his willpower to overcome the pain. The memory of Alejandro perishing in his arms fills him with renewed determination. The image of a wounded Sina fighting for him also motivates him not to surrender. And with tears in his eyes, he recalls his master's sacrifice to save him. With clenched teeth, he resolves that he will not fail and will conquer the pain. He screams that he will obtain the advanced Panem class, even if it means offering his very soul. Purple and blue energy explodes from his body as he resists the agony. The magic intensifies, and he continues the ritual with every ounce of his willpower. The system announces that he possesses a soul of sufficient size for the class. The hidden class is finally unlocked. He has achieved what he so desperately wanted. He sees the class selection screen and prepares to make his final choice. A lock shatters, and the card for the hidden class is revealed to the protagonist. The advanced Phantom class is an evolution of the hidden Phantom class and is incredibly rare. He is surprised as it's a class he has never encountered, not even in Adian. With a smile, he figures that many of its aspects must be similar to the Phantom class. The 2 class cards glow before him, and he knows he has accomplished everything. With a look of satisfaction, he declares that he has obtained all he desired and is ready. Now, it is time to execute the original plan and take revenge on his enemies. The passive ability of the Phantom class enhances the user's necromancy. He went through all of this so he could use the Archmage's body in his plan for vengeance. With a purple aura, he hopes this precious material can withstand what is to come. If he succeeds, he can drastically shorten the timeline for his revenge. The system announces that Lich creation has been activated, and the ritual commences. Aki's eyes glow with an intense purple light as he undergoes the transformation. But the Lich creation fails and a special undead creation is activated instead. With wide eyes, Rian is taken aback by the unexpected outcome of the ritual. A purple shadow emerges from Aki's body and begins to take on a new form. The dark energy coalesces, creating an imposing and terrifying figure. A creature clad in black armor with a purple aura materializes before Rian. The system announces the successful creation of a special, powerful undead. A window appears asking if he would like to name his new creation. An explosion of purple light illuminates the tower, catching the attention of the guards outside. The guards are startled by the blast and wonder what is happening. Desperate, one of them shouts, asking for the whereabouts of young Master Sun's. They find the area destroyed and worry about what might have transpired. Rian in Sun's body appears, carrying his former body over his shoulders. The guards cry out their young master's name, relieved to see him alive. He claims that Ak was responsible for everything, deceiving the guards with his performance. Angrily, he shouts that one of the fingers of Fatin betrayed him and attacked him in the dungeon. He says he trapped Ak with an artifact, but that the seal won't hold for long. Rian orders his men to buy him time to escape and return to his family. He promises that if they can hold Ak until reinforcements arrive, they will be greatly rewarded. The guards remain behind to fight as Rian flees with his former body. The guard narrating the story says that was the last time they ever saw the young master. At a military encampment, soldiers prepare for their next mission. A man named Pyres receives a report from his subordinates regarding the incident. Pyres is a 7th Circle Mage of the Fatin family, an exceptionally powerful man. He is intrigued to learn that no trace of Ak was found at the site. He crumples the report in anger, unable to believe what he has just read. With a furious expression, he wonders if the contents of the report are actually true. He asks the guards if they are the only ones who know what happened that night. A guard confirms they are but is promptly silenced by a surprise attack. A blast of red energy strikes him, and he collapses lifeless in front of everyone. The guard beside him screams in horror at seeing his companion taken down so suddenly. Pyres states that Sun's disappearance is a major problem for the family. And if word gets out that one of the fingers was involved, it will be even worse. A guard tries to stop him, but Pyres continues on his path without hesitation. He moves to attack the last survivor but is intercepted by a new adversary. A mysterious knight attacks him with his sword, preventing him from finishing the guard. With a blue aura, the knight prepares to battle the 7th Circle Mage. A white and blue energy envelops his body as he readies himself for the fight. The mysterious knight faces Pyres and the guards with a defiant look. With eyes glowing with rage, he vows to eliminate all of them right here and now. He accuses them of starting this war and demands they produce young Master Rian. Pyres realizes this isn't a mere suspicion but a firm conviction of their guilt. He points to the suspicious structures and the underground facility they've uncovered. Pyres claims he doesn't know where the Sermon family head is, adding that Sun's is also missing. He asks for their cooperation in the search, but Alejandro angrily tells him to shut his mouth. A purple-haired man appears, joining the tense discussion with a serious expression. Alejandro unleashes his blue aura, declaring he will not allow them to disturb the scene. He prepares to fight with his full strength to protect the area and his honor. The purple-haired man unleashes his pink aura, readying himself for the confrontation. Trudeau watches from a distance, hoping the situation doesn't escalate further. Sina appears suddenly, scolding the butler for speaking out of turn. With a furious gaze, she calls him a traitor and looks at him with contempt. She says that if it weren't for the young master's message, he would already be a pile of ashes. With a fireball in her hand, she orders him to stay quiet unless it's about the search. Trudeau reveals that the young master said he would leave a trail to be found. He explains that if it were easy to find, the Fatin hounds would have located it by now. The boy had said that only the blue earth refinement method could detect the trail. Sina concentrates, using her magic to sense the resonance of the mana refinement. A sphere of green energy glows, revealing the exact location of the trail. Sina finally finds the trail and prepares to follow the young master's clue. A bluish-green flame flickers to life in the middle of the forest, marking the exact spot. Trudeau is stunned by the sight, unable to believe what he's seeing. They find Rian's body hanging upside down from a tree. The scene is horrific, and Trudeau covers his face, unable to look at the boy's condition. Sina approaches and realizes it is only Sun's body the young master is gone. On the body's cloak, a message written in blood identifies him as the kidnapper. Next to the body, they discover a letter with a seal held down by a stone. The mage looks at the letter, realizing it's a message left by the protagonist. Trudeau asks if there's any trace of the boy, and Sina replies that she found a letter. In his thoughts, Rian explains he left the letter for Sina to find and understand his plan. He had considered taking over Sun's body, but the Fatin family head might have discovered it. If he returned as Rian, a war between the families could erupt. And the Sermon family, in its weakened state, could not afford a war right now. Therefore, he chose a third option and needed to leave an explanation for Sina. He left the letter so she would understand his motives and follow his instructions. Trudeau asks what the letter says, and Sina carefully opens it to read the message. She decides to return to the Sermon estate and burn the letter to leave no trace. With the letter engulfed in flames, she prepares to follow the young master's orders. An eagle soars over a battlefield at sunset, signaling the end of a chapter. It flies freely through the orange sky toward a new, unknown destiny. In a bustling city, a young man hurries through the streets, eager to reach his destination. A man calls out to him as Lion, saying the guild leader is looking for him. Truno asks Aina if she is certain, and the mage confirms her suspicions. The young Lin smiles confidently, declaring he is ready for whatever lies ahead. A woman with short hair and a glowing green eye looks at him with a smile. She calls him the Dragon of Dria, recognizing him as the missing young master. 3 months later, in the capital of the Paintstroy Kingdom, rumors are rampant. People discuss the ongoing stalemate between the Fatten and Sermon houses. A young blue-haired man runs through the city, overhearing the story of the kidnapping. In the end, the Sermon house accepted compensation from the Fatten house for the incident. People wonder what the family is thinking as the culprit was never found. A vendor tosses an apple to the young man while commenting on the family's decline. In a dark alley, a purple flag with a crow marks the Assassin's Guild. The Painton branch of the Martin Assassins Guild operates from a discreet building. A woman seated in a chair remarks on the family's desperate need for money. With a thoughtful expression, she reflects on the news and rumors she's heard. She finds it all rather tedious and introduces herself as Sapphire, leader of the Painton branch. A man asks about the news concerning the execution of Truno, the Sermon house butler. He says it was revealed that Truno collaborated with the traitor from the Fatten house. For that, Alejandro executed him immediately for his unforgivable betrayal. Sapphire is surprised to learn that one of the few remaining sword masters carried out the sentence. The guild door opens, and the young lion enters with a serious expression. Sapphire greets him by name as he approaches her desk. He greets Mr. Duns and asks if he's here to see the branch leader. He heads upstairs to the leader's office for an important meeting. Sapphire awaits him, seated, and announces that the day of his test has finally come. She presents a letter with a seal, asking if he knows what it is. He recognizes it as a letter of recommendation to become an official member. With a confident smile, he readies himself for the guild's final test. He notes there is still one test, and Sapphire confirms it will be his first real combat mission. She thinks it's a pointless test for someone of his caliber, but must adhere to the rules. After all, the guild is the 4th largest among all assassin guilds on the continent. The young man faces her with a serious, determined gaze, ready for the challenge. She praises his talent, stating he's become the youngest official member in 100 years. He humbly replies that it's nothing compared to her, a second-class assassin. Sapphire remarks that his expression has brightened since they first met. She sips her tea, recalling his state when he first arrived at the guild. On a rainy night, she muses that 2 months have passed since that day. That night, the guild door had opened, and a mysterious young man appeared. He arrived in silence at the Assassin's Guild, an organization unknown to the general public. He offered a vast sum of money and made a request for a hit. With a determined look, he paid a fortune to have his request granted. Sapphire was intrigued by the boy, his confidence, and his fearless demeanor. The young man looked out the window with a smile and made a most unusual request. He said he heard the guild accepts any request, as long as money is involved. She admits she had a premonition that she would never again find such a unique client. The boy looked like a beggar but possessed great wealth, and his request was shocking. He asked for the guild to take him out. It would have been strange not to be interested. Lion says he will review the letter on his own and gets up to leave the room. He asks her to summon him when the test is ready, and Sapphire agrees. The woman watches him go, her mind drifting back to how it all began 2 months ago. A shadowy figure asks if she accepted him into guild based on a mere premonition. She denies it, explaining the boy entered the training program and completed it in just 1 month, a program that typically takes 5 to 10 years to finish. She asks if Carl has concluded his investigation into the young talent's past. The investigation reveals he has no surname and was raised by an unknown master. It also states he joined the guild to find information about his missing master. Thanks to this background, his skills were verified, and he passed the training rapidly. Carl confirms that all information regarding Lian is true and accurate. He says he visited the place where a lion used to live and found traces of someone. An abandoned house in the forest showed signs of recent habitation. But Sapphire says something else is more important right now and looks at him seriously. She asks about the possibility of Lion actually being the missing Rian's sermon. Carl falls silent for a moment, considering the leader's startling question. He recalls that a mysterious boy of the same age appeared around the same time. Sapphire wonders if it's truly a coincidence, feeling uneasy about the idea. But Carl insists the possibility is extremely low, as Rian is known to be weak. He explains that Rian possesses neither mana nor physical strength, and is considered the family's ruin. There's no way he could be the same person as Lion, who is a naturally gifted and highly skilled individual. Sapphire dismisses him, saying she can't waste a talent like him on trivial matters. A wisp of green smoke escapes Sapphire's lips, transforming into a small phantom. She orders Carl to find out about Lion's master, as he must be an extraordinary individual. With a green aura, Rian thinks to himself that her intuition is sharp and dangerous. He muses that the necromancer ability is quite convenient for gathering intelligence. But Sapphire complains of the cold, and Carl wonders why she feels chilled despite her coat. Rian opens his status window to check his progress and new abilities. His stats are remarkably high, and he has several powerful skills at his command. With a determined look, he realizes the levels he consumed for the class change have been restored. He knows that investing magical power into body domination was well worth it. His ability has reached a level where it can deceive even second-class assassins. He remembers the creature he created from Aki's body that day. The creature asks if he wishes to give it a name, and the protagonist considers a response. He decides to name it Kornak, and the creature seems to accept its new name. With a green and purple glow, the creature bows before its new master. He analyzes Kornak's stats and skills, realizing it functions much like a player. He understands that he has created an undead being that can grow and become stronger. He wonders if this is the true power of the Phantom class and is deeply impressed. He examines the creature's circuit to better comprehend its abilities. With his glowing green eyes, he analyzes every detail of the magical circuit. He can perceive each component of the circuit and how mana flows through it. Suddenly, within the circuit, he discovers a hidden quest titled Avenger. He realizes there are hidden conditions that a player must find and complete, and that Korno is born from a combination of various skills and a hidden quest. He knows that splitting his experience points will be a burden, but it will be worthwhile. Under the full moon, he reflects that growth means looking toward the future. He sits atop a tower contemplating his next moves. With a serious gaze, he knows he must think about the future, not just the present. A man named Duncan approaches, asking what he is pondering so deeply. Rian replies he was thinking about passing the exam and becoming a guild leader. Duncan laughs, saying that with his growth rate, he might achieve that dream someday. But he warns that today there are 3 examinees, and only one can pass the test. The final test is to become an official member of the guild and a 5th-class assassin. Duncan introduces Pala, a competitor who eyes Rian with a serious expression. Next, he introduces Lip, another competitor who also gives him a challenging stare. Finally, he introduces Lion, explaining that whoever takes out the target becomes a member. With a serious look, Duncan declares the exam begins now, and the contest is on. The 3 competitors prepare for the mission, awaiting information on the target. One of the competitors reveals the target is Alrock, a 47-year-old merchant. He is always accompanied by 3 mercenaries, 2 warriors, and a silver-ranked mage. Rumors suggest he recently acquired a young, beautiful mistress. He visits his mistress's room every night, and the mercenaries do not stay nearby. Duncan commends their investigation and how they found a way to bypass the guards. But he asks what guarantee they have that the target will visit the mistress's room tonight. He questions if they, as trainees, can handle the guards on their own. Duncan explains this is precisely why the guild gathers intelligence and plans meticulously. He then turns to Rian, asking if he would like to share his findings. With a confident smirk, Rian asks if he really needs to say anything. The other competitors and the instructor look at him with curiosity and expectation. Rian states he sees no reason to share intelligence, since only one of them will pass. The other competitors are irritated by his selfish attitude and glare at him angrily. He says he was never taught about camaraderie, which infuriates them even more. Duncan agrees with the boy, remarking that his response captures the essence of an assassin. He explains the importance of passing the test using the skills learned in training, and that the nature of assassins is to use others as necessary to ensure success. The other 2 competitors are left speechless and agree to proceed with the test. Duncan then announces that from this moment, they are free to take out the target. The 3 competitors leap from the rooftop, setting off on their mission with determination. Duncan recalls the hit request Rian made to join the guild. The request had mobilized 10 4th-class and 3 3rd-class assassins to hunt him. With a confident smile, Rian had accepted the condition of being taken on as a trainee. Duncan had thought he was insane, but the boy was determined to prove his worth. He challenged the assassins to find him within 10 minutes, but they failed miserably. After 3 days of searching, all the assassins admitted defeat to the young prodigy. They were impressed by his traps and tricks, praising him for his skill. Sapphire kept her promise and began training him personally from that day forward. She knew it was no easy feat to become an official assassin of the Martin Guild. The instructor thinks he might be witnessing a historic moment for the guild. Pala, one of the competitors, sprints across the rooftops with speed and agility. Pala disables the alarms, thinking he has successfully bypassed the mercenaries. But he is surprised to find more guards present than he had anticipated. An intruder is spotted, and the guards rush to apprehend her in the courtyard. Lip remains hidden, watching the guards pursue her rival with a smirk. She thanks Pala for making things easier and prepares to make her move. With a cold look, she thinks that if he hadn't been caught, she would have exposed him herself. The target had faced countless attempts on his life, always fleeing to the same sanctuary. And that sanctuary was his wife's room, the place where he felt most secure. Auroch's wife complains that she has grown tired of his betrayals and lies. She accuses him of bringing assassins to their home, her eyes filled with hatred. Desperate, he tries to explain, saying the room has special security precautions. Lip observes from a distance, noting that both the security and the number of mercenaries have increased. She senses 5 ordinary soldiers and decides a frontal assault is worth the risk. With a dagger in hand, she prepares to strike the target and complete her mission. Auroch sees her and yells for her to drop the dagger, warning that it's dangerous and she could get hurt. Suddenly, she is taken by surprise and retreats to defend against an attack. Auroch's wife lunges at him with a dagger, saying she has tried to endure for too long. She accuses him of taking money from her family again and says she can no longer bear his lies. Enraged, she says he used the money to buy gifts for his mistress. And without pity, she attacks him with the dagger, ending his life once and for all. Lip is shocked to see that it was Auroch's wife who ultimately took him down. The woman trembles with shock and regret after committing the terrible act. The blood-soaked dagger clatters to the floor as the woman realizes the gravity of her crime. With tears in her eyes, she wonders what she has done and falls into despair. She screams in horror at the sight of her husband's lifeless body on the floor. Lip watches the scene from afar, trying to process what just happened. She wonders if the mission is a success or a failure, since she wasn't the one to finish the target. Suddenly, it dawns on her Lad never appeared, and she wonders where he is. Atop a roof, Paolo waits for news on the mission's outcome. She concludes the mission was a failure, since the target wasn't taken out by one of them. With a look of disappointment, she resigns herself to the mission's failure. She explains to Duncan that Arok was finished by his wife, not by them. Rian appears, facing her with a confident smile and a challenging look. Paolo is surprised to see him there, wondering how he arrived before she did. She questions if he even went to the mansion, or if he was just waiting the whole time. Suddenly, Lip appears and attacks her from behind, her eyes filled with rage. Paolo makes it back safely and explains that the mercenaries began fighting amongst themselves. She managed to escape during the confusion and return to the Rendezvous point. Duncan announces that the test is over but clarifies that the hit was not a failure. Extending his hand, he declares that Lion was the one who successfully completed the mission. The other competitors cry out in shock, unable to understand the instructor's decision. One of them asks how the mission could be complete if Arok was finished by his own wife. But Duncan reveals that this was Lion's handiwork, leaving them even more confused. He explains that Rian manipulated the situation to make the wife take out the target. Using his necromancer ability, he controlled the woman as if she were a puppet. Paolo and Lip are both shocked and furious upon discovering the protagonist's scheme. Duncan asks if he can explain how he orchestrated it, and Rian agrees. The other two are irritated, knowing he's about to boast about his cleverness. But the protagonist simply says he will tell them, surprising them with his straightforwardness. Paolo and Lip exchange glances, unable to believe he is about to reveal his secret. Rian explains that the solution lay in the relationship between Alarok and his first wife. He identified the target in the same manner they did, recognizing him by name. The information about the guards and the mistress was also accurate. But he had already investigated this information and prepared for it in advance. The two are shocked and furious, realizing he had played them. They question him, but Rian replies that he never said, he only investigated Arok. He gathered intelligence on everyone with a bad reputation who might become a target, and he used the remaining time to prepare for each potential target, not just one. The two are dumbfounded, realizing he essentially studied the entire textbook in advance. In the process, he discovered that someone harbored a deep grudge against Arok. He reveals that the person with the grudge was Arok's wife, Kelly. Rian approached her and suggested she hire an assassin's guild. She despised her husband for ignoring her and squandering her family's money on mistresses. The boy suggested she bolster the security, which would frighten Arok, and when he inevitably fled to her room for safety, she could play the victim. She could blame the mistress for the attack, and he would come crawling back to her, full of regret. Drowning in alcohol due to her husband's actions, she easily fell for the young man's plan. If things had gone as she'd hoped, her plan would have been a success. But Rian provided her with one final piece of information before the plan commenced. A letter revealed that the money for the mistress's gifts was taken from her own family's funds. Duncan is shocked, realizing the entire exam was in the boy's hands from the start. Lip is terrified by the protagonist's intelligence and manipulative skill. The two competitors wonder if they were unknowingly cast as the target's mistresses. But Duncan says one detail doesn't fit and questions the boy. Rian admits he provided a little help to ensure the plan's success. He mixed a potion into the household's drinks to influence the wife's emotions. He also mixed the potion into the mercenaries' water supply in case of casualties. The potion had the effect of clouding judgment and inflaming anger. His competitor realizes that the fight among the mercenaries was also Rian's doing. He says he didn't want a guildmate to perish, so he offered a helping hand. The other competitors are stunned by Rian's confident demeanor. They are speechless, realizing he had foreseen and manipulated every variable. Duncan concludes that everything unfolded precisely according to the protagonist's plan. He states that a hit isn't just about wielding the knife and congratulates Rian. The instructor informs him he will receive an additional payment from Kelly for his services. Rian explains that only they know Arok was finished by his wife, not an assassin. Kelly would pay to cover up her crime and pin the blame on assassins. Duncan is impressed by the young assassin's intelligence and cold calculation. The other competitors realize he is on a completely different level. They concede it's better to aim for second place than to compete with him. Duncan dismisses the two, telling them to return to the guild and asks to speak with Lion alone. The two leap from the rooftop and depart, leaving the instructor and the protagonist by themselves. Duncan remains silent for a moment before addressing the boy. He reprimands him for making an ordinary woman bear the guilt of ending her husband's life. He states the guild creates assassins, not monsters who manipulate innocent people. But re-encounters that he also saw her as an ordinary woman until he learned the truth. He reveals that every mistress Arok ever brought home was taken out by Kelly. Duncan is shocked to learn that Arok had ruined countless lives through his dealings. Kelly never acted directly but used her family's power to handle the women. The passings were covered up as disappearances, and the families were powerless to object. Duncan grows thoughtful as the protagonist explains these facts were uncovered during his investigation. He clarifies that the guild only receives full payment if the target is eliminated, and that a client's circumstances are irrelevant to a professional assassin. He questions whether conscience interfering with a hit makes it any less of a crime. Duncan is taken aback by the boy's philosophy and his perspective on their work. Rian states that Kelly didn't want to finish her husband with her own hands, and they simply fulfilled the request. Duncan asks if he believes conscience is unnecessary for assassins. The protagonist replies that to maintain one's humanity, one must grow and change things from within. He advises him not to dwell on it, as nothing will change as long as he remains in the guild. The boy turns and walks away, leaving the instructor alone with his thoughts. Back at the guild, Rian prepares for his graduation ceremony. He is now an official member and proudly receives his certificate. Sapphire congratulates him, declaring that he is now a 5th-class assassin. The system announces the mission's completion, and he receives his rewards. He levels up and completes a bonus mission for his exceptional performance. The other guild members applaud and congratulate him on his achievement. He has earned the respect of his competitors and the high expectations of his instructor. Sapphire explains that he can now take official contracts and request promotions. Rian asks about the requirements, and she says he needs a contract worth at least 30 gold. She is shocked when he reveals he already has such a contract, staring at him in surprise. Rian looks the guild leader in the eye and asks directly about the value of the Arok mission. The other assassins are stunned, wondering what he is doing. With a serious expression, the protagonist insists on knowing the mission's true value. Sapphire stares at him in silence, carefully analyzing the situation. She then reveals it was 10 gold as an advance, plus 10 upon completion. The other guild members continue to watch, now understanding his objective. At this, the instructor adds that he secured another 10 gold from Kelly for the cover. Up. Duncan's jaw drops as he realizes the boy had planned everything, right down to the extra payment. With a confident smile, the young man says that while it may have been a test, he handled everything. The other assassins remain dumbfounded by the boy's audacity and intelligence. He explains that he was the one who secured the contract, completed the mission, and collected payment. The young man then states that the 30 gold requirement for the first promotion has been met. The guild leader is furious at the rookie's attitude in challenging her so directly. Introducing himself as a 5th-class assassin, he requests a promotion to 4th class. Everyone in the guild stares in stunned silence at the audacity of his sudden request. Her eyes flashing with anger, she asks if he doesn't find that incredibly arrogant, but the protagonist just offers a confident smile, unfazed by her intimidation. She concedes that what he did was impressive, but he is looking down on them. The woman explains that the organization has rules and a protocol that must be followed, and becoming a 4th-class assassin is when one is considered a true professional. With a furious look, the leader accuses him of ignoring all of the guild's rules. She then admits his results meet the requirements, but that such actions create enemies. For that reason, the woman says she will pretend she never heard his request and attempts to dismiss him, but the protagonist refuses and with a purple aura, states that he will not withdraw his request. The leader becomes irritated, shouting that to survive here, he needs a bit of tact. At this, Duncan, the instructor, intervenes, asking to speak with the branch manager. The three stand there as the instructor prepares to give his opinion. The woman allows him to speak, and he says that Lion is qualified for the promotion exam. He continues, explain that the young man does not look down on them, but there is something he held back during the test. The leader is intrigued by her subordinate's words, while the young man offers a slight smirk. The man reveals that he didn't use his physical abilities, but rather his intellect and strategy. The boy's former rivals look bored as he won using only his intelligence. But the 4th-class test is impossible without physical strength, making this the perfect opportunity to evaluate him. The other members recall how he deceived them with traps and tricks during recruitment. With a slight smile, the woman considers for a moment and finally agrees with the instructor. She permits the exam but warns him that even the best assassins risk their lives. With a serious and intimidating gaze, the guild leader asks if he is prepared for that. The protagonist then shakes the woman's hand, sealing the agreement between them. With a look full of confidence and a wicked smile, he confirms that he is ready. Outside, the guild's headquarters stands quietly under a purple sky, awaiting the next challenge. Later, in a tavern, Duncan remarks that the boy is a master at keeping everyone on their toes. Seated at a table, he says the protagonist acted far too hastily. One of the girls suggests he must have his reasons and wonders if he has a plan. Then, a waitress brings more drinks, and someone mentions the test won't be for another month or two. Duncan offers to train him, but Rian declines, saying he plans to rest until the day of the exam. The idea of resting instead of training leaves everyone completely shocked and confused. He then says he will be away from the guild and asks if he can leave the territory. The instructor confirms, and the young man says he'll return before the exam to check the schedule. Duncan is left pondering the boy's attitude, wondering what his plan is now. With a confident smile, the young man simply wipes the foam from his drink off his lips. The instructor then raises his mug, proposing they drink all night to celebrate. Outside the guild, one of the girls advises Rian not to drink too much, given his age. But the protagonist thinks that free time like this won't come around again anytime soon. He knows that from 4th class on, he will have to accept contracts constantly without a break. And since the target is now a branch chief, he must seize this chance to go. Later, the young man travels alone, stopping on a mountain to gaze at the horizon. His destination is the Perilous Shadow Zone, a perfect location for his secret training. With a smile and a green aura, he faces the land of demise, ready for the challenge. Elsewhere, a luxurious carriage travels at high speed through the night. It is heavily escorted by numerous knights, protecting it from any potential danger. Leading the escort is a young pink-haired knight mounted on a fine white horse. Suddenly, he spots something on the road and halts his horse with a surprised expression. They find a hooded traveler sitting in the middle of the path, blocking their way. Irritated, the knight yells at the figure, demanding to know what they're doing just sitting there. The protagonist turns slowly to face the noble who questions him with such arrogance. With a subtle movement, he reveals a sliver of his face to the curious knight. And in an instant the boy moves, positioning himself directly in front of the noble's horse. With a pitiful expression, he claims to have twisted his ankle and needs help getting to the next village. The pink-haired knight is annoyed by the boy's audacity and calls him a brat. He threatens him, saying if they were in a hurry, they wouldn't hesitate to run him down. But the protagonist just offers a slight smirk, as this is all part of his plan. The young man points out that, judging by his tone, they aren't in a hurry and aren't even on the main road. The noble is shocked by the young man's astuteness and glares at him with intense anger. Then, with a lost puppy dog expression, Rian pleads for help for the poor boy. The knight and his horse share a bored look, unsure how to react to the scene. From inside the carriage, a female voice instructs someone named Kino to let the young man in. But the knight refuses, shouting that there's no way he's doing such a thing. The voice then suggests he put him on his own horse, if he doesn't want him in the carriage. With no other choice, Kino takes the boy on his horse, who flashes a victorious smile. Now with an unexpected ride, the protagonist continues his journey in a new fashion. One of the knights teases Kanil for having to carry the boy on his horse. The noble then asks the young man's name, and he introduces himself as Rian of Fainton. The protagonist thanks the young lady in the carriage, saying he owes his life to her. Kinel tells him to be grateful he encountered her, and Rian gives a mocking smile. In his thoughts, he reveals it wasn't luck but a calculated plan to accompany her. He had been researching the route and noticed the Rose family would be taking the same path. They lived in a remote area, but with the death of the family head, she was forced to flee. Her guards were not true knights but mercenaries hired for her protection. One of the mercenaries laments the young lady's situation and the hardships she faces. But with a smirk, Rian thinks that the fall of the Rose family was due to the sermons. One of the guards is shocked to hear this, unable to believe the information. In his investigation, he had uncovered everything about the family head's demise and the Harris's exile. With a serious expression, he wonders how his own family is entangled in this affair. One of the knights mentions hearing a rumor about the incident between the families, and the rumor alleges that the sermons eliminated the chief to hide evidence of collusion. Under the light of the moon, the caravan stops and the knights set up camp. While some rest by the campfire, others tend to the horses. With a thoughtful expression, Rian sits alone, observing the scene from a distance. He moves closer to the carriage and continues his silent vigil throughout the night. The protagonist now has a new objective: infiltrate the group and uncover the truth. Under the moonlight, our hero analyzes the information he has gathered so far. He understands the fall of the Rose family is a direct result of the conflict between the Sermons and Fattons. The connection began when the Rose heir became a knight of the Sermon house. But he was defeated by monsters, and the Sermon house pledged to support the Rose family. The Annie family, displeased by this, then allied with the Fattons to exploit the situation. They fabricated a story blaming the Sermons for the tragic end of the Rose family's head. The Rose family discovered the truth but lacked the power to challenge the Fattons. Consequently, they lost their leader and were forced into exile in the kingdom of Darren. Very few people knew the truth behind this entire political conspiracy. The young heirs could only rely on Canil and the few loyal servants who remained. And with such a small entourage, the journey into exile would be incredibly dangerous. Throughout the night, one of the guards stands watch, protecting the camp from attack. Inside the carriage, the young Saint in Rose sleeps, unaware of the dangers that surround her. Someone comments on the strange way the son of the Annie family had been looking at her. Canil then says angrily that the true culprits are the Fattons and the Annis. He reveals that their request for asylum was only granted with the help of the Sermon house's manager. Rian listens intently to everything while eating his soup by the campfire. The noble says the Sermon family used what little strength they had left to help them. The other knights are moved and raise a toast in honor of the Sermon house. One of the guards then offers the young men another serving of soup, which he readily accepts. The guard apologizes, but Rian says the story was interesting to listen to. He then asks if it's alright for him to travel with them and share in these stories. The guard laughs, reminding him that he was the one who blocked their path, begging for help. Canil says it's fine, adding that he seems more at ease now after getting things off his chest. But one of the knights remarks that the one who suffers most in this situation is the young Saint in Rose. Rian silently agrees, knowing the real problem is the family's Harris. He realizes the knights don't grasp the severity of the situation they're in, nor do they sense the danger that draws closer with each passing moment. The Annie family won't be satisfied with merely eliminating the head of the Rose house, especially the second son, who has already had 3 hit requests on him rejected. He is a brute who preys on the weak and poor, and all requests against him were refused, and because he's paranoid about his own safety, he is nearly impossible to get to. If someone like that has his sights set on Sainton, they cannot remain idle. Suddenly, the protagonist senses a strange presence and glances toward the cliff. In a swift motion, he slips away from the camp and dashes into the dark forest. He realizes they are being followed and decides to take action to protect them. Instead of fighting directly, he decides it's more efficient to set traps to delay their pursuers. One of the guards sees him returning, covered in dirt, and asks what happened. With a smile, the young man claims he slipped while relieving himself in the woods. The guard tells him to rest since he's injured, and Rian sits down, dagger in hand. He thinks that he has set enough traps and gathered the information he needed. And with a smirk, he says he considers this payment for the soup he ate. The next day, the sun rises and the caravan prepares to continue its journey. Rian thanks them for the ride, and Kanil asks what a boy is doing so close to the shadow zone. The young man replies that he works as a merchant and plans to buy materials to sell. One of the knights then asks if this is where they finally part ways. At that moment, the protagonist receives a potion as a gift from the young Harris. The potion is to help heal his wound, which is not yet fully closed. He is surprised to learn that the young lady in the carriage was concerned about him. From within the carriage, Sainton Rose observes the young man with a gentle gaze. Kanil says that thanks to him, they were able to enjoy a moment of peace on their journey. With the potion in hand, the protagonist looks toward the carriage with gratitude. He offers his thanks and says he will be staying in Darren, but the knight tells him not to seek them out. One of the guards remarks that the captain may seem rude, but he's a good man deep down. Kanil gets irritated by the comment and orders everyone to move out at once. The caravan departs and the young man watches them disappear down the dirt road. With a smile, he looks at the potion he received as a gift from the young Harris. And without a second thought, he opens the vial and drinks the entire potion. The potion's energy courses through his body, strengthening him for what lies ahead. With a single leap, he sprints at high speed toward his next destination. Suddenly, he hears the thundering of horse hooves approaching rapidly. A group of riders gallops down the dirt road, kicking up a cloud of dust. With a surprised look, the protagonist realizes the pursuers have arrived. He counts 6 pursuers, 2 common mercenaries, and 2 novice swordsmen. The 2 knights appear to be the weakest of the group but still pose a threat. And to complicate matters, there is a mage who will undoubtedly be difficult to deal with. The last of them conceals his face, but he is certain it is a powerful noble. And with a wicked smile, the second son of the Annie family leads the assault party. Garuda Annie, the man he investigated, is here to wipe out the Rose family. He gallops past the protagonist at high speed, completely unaware of his presence. With a determined look, Rian knows he must act quickly to save them. The dust kicked up by the horses envelopes the young man as he prepares for the confrontation. He follows the pursuers from a distance, realizing they are stronger than he anticipated. His traps were not enough, and he laments getting into this mess over a single bowl of soup. But suddenly he feels a strange power emanating from the potion he drank earlier. He discovers the potion was worth at least 20 silver, a very expensive gift. With a smile, he appreciates the young lady's kindness and wonders what she was thinking. He knows the Rose family stands no chance against such a formidable enemy. They will take Sainton and mercilessly eliminate the rest of her guards. But he decides this is an advance payment for his services and prepares to intervene. He knows that if he pursues them directly, more innocent people could be harmed. So he uses a magic circle and summons his creature to aid him in battle. With a green aura, he gives Kornak its first mission: protect the Rose family. Far away, the caravan proceeds peacefully, unaware of the approaching danger. Suddenly, Kino feels something is wrong and halts his horse with a sense of foreboding. He looks back with a worried expression and orders everyone to quicken their pace. One of the guards is confused by the sudden order, but the noble offers no explanation. He informs the young lady in the carriage they will be moving faster and asks her to hold on. A knight asks what's wrong, and Kanil shouts that pursuers are on their tail. With the border just ahead, he commands his men to move as quickly as possible. He then orders 2 of his guards to prepare for the worst. If they are overtaken, they are to take the young lady and flee to the border without looking back. There, the Annas cannot touch her, as they won't risk provoking the border guard. With a determined look, he declares he will buy them time to escape safely. The guards shout their captain's name and promise to meet him at the border. With a confident smile, Kino prepares to face the enemies alone. He knows the Annie knights are stronger, but he is a knight of the Rose House. The pursuers draw ever closer, preparing for their final assault. But suddenly, the group's leader reins in his horse upon seeing something unexpected on the road. A sharp blade materializes from nowhere, blocking the path of the enemy knights. Kino demands to know who they are and orders them to withdraw immediately. With a furious look, he threatens to cut them all down if they do not obey. The group's leader merely laughs at the threat, looking at the knight with contempt. With a wicked smile, he asks if Kino truly believes he can stop them. He mocks the noble, asking if he thinks being a knight makes him special. Kino is shocked to recognize the leader of the pursuers as Garuda Annie. The villain then reveals his plan to eliminate everyone except for the young Sainton. With a cruel look, he orders his men to bring her to him before they reach the border. The mercenaries advance and Kino prepares to fight with all his might. But suddenly a blast of magic strikes him, sending him flying violently. The enemy group's mage attacks him with a powerful spell, leaving him wounded. Kino realizes the mage is at least second circle, and the situation grows more dire. Garuda then tells the mage to relax, as he will handle the knight himself. Lying on the ground, the noble finds himself surrounded by a new enemy approaching. The man states that nothing will change the fact that he will meet his end here. Kanil is shocked to recognize the former captain of the Rose House Knights. The man says the family is gone and he needs money to survive. With a kick, he mercilessly attacks one of his former comrades. And in an instant, the traitor lunges at Kinil with his sharp sword. The two knights clash in a mortal battle for the young Harris's life. Kinil yells at the traitor, asking if he has lost all sense of chivalry. But the man retorts that the world has changed and there is no more chivalry in Fenistroy. The two attack each other relentlessly, but Kinil is at a disadvantage against his former captain. The traitor tells him to give up and find a better lord to serve in the future. Enraged, Kinil refuses to listen to the ramblings of a dishonorable traitor. Garuda then orders him to be finished, as the young Saintin should have been captured by now. The man apologizes and prepares to deliver the final blow to his former comrade. But suddenly a blast of green energy strikes the traitor, stopping his attack on Kinil. Garuda is shocked by the unexpected intervention, wondering who else is there. A creature wreathed in a green aura appears from nowhere, attacking the traitor with its magic. Kordak, the creature summoned by the protagonist, saves Kinil from the traitor's fatal blow. The man is struck by the magic, feeling excruciating pain rack his wounded body. With a powerful assault, the creature launches multiple projectiles of green energy. The enemies are caught off guard as a massive explosion rips through their ranks. The mage and Garuda manage to erect a mana shield to protect themselves from the blast. But the traitor is not so fortunate and is gravely injured by the creature's magic. Ryun and Kornak prepare for their next attack, their eyes filled with determination. Elsewhere, a sword floats in midair, poised to strike the carriage. The magical blade inches closer and closer to the carriage where Saintin is hiding. The young Harris is in grave danger with no one left to protect her. The carriage's guards have been defeated, and the area is littered with signs of a struggle. The horses and carriage are destroyed, and the guards can barely remain on their feet. The two remaining guards are severely wounded but continue to fight on. They realize their enemy is too strong, and they have no chance of winning this battle. The mercenaries mock them, suggesting they should just crawl away quietly. Suddenly, a firm voice declares that is enough, and everyone turns in surprise. The young Saintin Rose emerges from the carriage, thanking her guards for their loyalty. One of the guards despairs at seeing her come out, trying to stop her from surrendering. With a dagger in her hand, she offers to go with them if they spare her men's lives. With a determined gaze, the Harris threatens to end her own life if they refuse. She faces them with courage, stating that their employers would not be pleased with that outcome.